Well, hi everyone across the North American continent. It's a pleasure to be with you now. This is Mark Ferris from Panalytics, and this is one of our 2 April webinars that we're broadcasting into the United States and Canada. I'm very happy to be spending the next just short of an hour with you on a topic which has raised quite a lot of interest. We've had really good attendance, including on this webinar, but we've done it in Europe and we've done it in Australia and New Zealand as well. So I hope you get something out of it. Let's get into this. I hope you're settled and you can be not distracted for the next few hour or so as we go through this. Now, please feel free to enter a question or a comment in the question box there. We welcome all comments. I will make a promise that every question that is asked will be answered. I will not promise to answer it during this webinar because we may not have the time to address questions there, but I will drop you a note for any question that is submitted there. And we will be recording this in case you want to share it with your colleagues or friends or whoever, or just go back and review the material. So we're talking about the critical subject of marketing, something that is critical to all businesses, not just accountants, but in this very interesting and challenging business environment in which we are currently existing. And I want to look at this from a whole variety of angles today. One of my premises will be that there are opportunities available to accounting businesses going forward. And I hope we can play a small part in helping you to take those opportunities. I'm Mark Ferris, chairman of Panalytics. One of my previous endeavors was to start and build and then sell a marketing research and analytics business. We were fortunate to work with Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Citibank, some very, very big businesses. And I was lucky to learn from them some best practices in marketing, which I think can be leveraged into small and medium-sized businesses. And there's 3 things I'd like to tackle today. The first is let's just get the language that we're speaking correct and make sure that we're all talking about the same thing here. A couple of definitions around marketing. And then I'd like to spend a little bit of time on the current environment, not too much, because frankly, you have an abundance of information that you can go and look at to understand what's going on around us, but we'll just pull out a few key points. And then I'm going to give you, I believe, nine factors which I feel are important now that marketers might be applying into their businesses in this period. I have a few resources that I'll share with you towards the end as well. So that's our agenda today. I hope you're settled and ready to get started. Let's get right into this. So background and definitions. You know, what is it that marketers have at their disposal? What is one of the core assets that they create, which drives their activities? And I think one of the main things is content, of course. Right? What is content? Content is simply the stuff that we say. It's our message. It's how we communicate. It's the substance of what we say. And it can take all kinds of forms, right? It can be promotional about our products. It can be educational. It can be entertaining. And it can have a lot of tones. It can be serious and terse and very professional, or it can be light and airy. But it's the stuff that we say. It's that core message. And we're very big in Panalytics and trying to get firms to think very hard about what their underlying core message is. And if we have that content, a plan for that content, we need to distribute it, right? We need to send it out there so it reaches our targets. And we use various channels. I was talking to an accountant here in Australia earlier today, and he does all of his marketing on radio. And so that's the channel that he selects. I spoke to someone last week who does billboard advertising there in the United States. And many of you have digital newsletters, you have websites, you use social media, you go to events, you may stage your own events. Those are all the kinds of channels which you might use. And they all have different costs to enter. And some of them are much more suited to your target clients than others. So there's quite a lot that we have to think about as we try to reach our targets. If we do reach our targets, we will make them aware that we exist and that we have something to offer and that we are different from the competition. And we're starting to get them a little bit intrigued now by the fact that we might be able to offer them something, right? So this is the first step, is to try and get people aware of our existence. And if we do that, we might be lucky enough to do what marketing sets out to do in the first place, which is to generate business opportunities or leads, right? Now, keep in mind, we don't want just any old lead. We want quality leads. We want leads which are with the best companies, the best target clients, buying our best products, right? So we can make margins and we can have long-term relationships with those clients, right? So that's the ultimate measure of success in marketing. I think what's on that slide is nothing to do with the crisis at all. It's marketing 101, right? The question is, for today, is what might we modify as we go about our marketing efforts among those ideas that are expressed there? What might we modify in this current environment? Let's spend a little bit of time on the current environment then, right? What do we know or not know about it? Well, I think most people, I was just reading some news. I hate reading news, by the way, and I try to avoid it at all costs, but I was reading some prior to this. And one thing that we will probably all agree on is that the macroeconomic measures are adversely affected right now. We look at GDP, both current and projected. We look at unemployment figures. We look at stock market volatility. We look at currencies weakening relative to other currencies, right? So this is well understood. And of course, a lot of this derives from your clients and my clients, right? Because they are the microeconomy, the small, medium-sized business, right? And they're also feeling the impact. Basically, mostly reduction in the number of transactions that they're experiencing. That means reduced sales, which means less cash available, which means less need for resources, including human resources, therefore driving that unemployment metric, right? So, okay, nothing new here, right? Another thing that is interesting at this point, and I'll give you a short history here. I arrived in Japan in the early 90s, and this was just months after the collapse of the bubble economy, right? And there was a recession which really went on for a decade in Japan. And people who were drinking $1,000 bottles of champagne didn't drink champagne for 5 years, right? So there was that recession I encountered. Going forward to the technology bubble in 2000, I was exposed in private equity and early stage tech investments in 2000, and the bottom fell out of that market. That was another recession with a particular sector focus. 9/11, of course, followed that, which had a lot of uncertainty, not necessarily economic uncertainty, but other sociological and political uncertainty. The global financial crisis of 2007, 2008 was another recessionary environment. And then 2011, I was still in Japan, couldn't get rid of me, when the earthquake and tsunami hit the country. And there was about 3 months of real nervousness regarding the nuclear risk around Fukushima, and the idea that we would never buy fresh produce in Japan again. In fact, we never live in certain areas and all that. And this environment, of course, feels a little bit like that because of the way in which it's destabilized our perception of health and the way we live, not just the business environment. So some of your clients might have been preparing for recession, but very few of them were preparing for pandemic. And the other thing that's, I won't say new, but it continues like a colossus to grow, is the amount of information we have available, right? And unfortunately, that means a lot of the information is misinformation. And I ask myself, who really knows what's going on here? Politicians, economists, doctors, medics, business people, right? I am suspicious that no one really knows what's going on in the sense of what's going to happen in the next week, month, 3 months, 6 months, right? So there's a great deal of uncertainty, and that leads to heightened sensitivity as people face unreasonably tough decisions, and there's a lot of pressure that they're under. This is what you might be experiencing in your own businesses, but also with your clients right now. My view is that, look, there is a cyclical aspect to this, and this is business. Business will expose us to some very, very tough environments from time to time. By the way, There will also be some very attractive and appealing environments from time to time. It is what it is. Our first responsibility is to organize ourselves as individuals and then to organize our businesses, because if we cannot sustain as businesses, we cannot help anyone else. We cannot survive, and we won't create value going forward. So I'm very determined to help our clients think about making sure they are making good decisions for their businesses first and foremost in this kind of environment. Let's put a little bit more of a marketing lens on this now. And I noticed I did a whole lot of research and looked at some data, and I'm happy to share those data sources if anyone's interested. But what's happening is a lot of people then are hunkering down, and I'm talking in marketing and advertising and so on. And there's a lot of data around the decrease of spending on advertising across all of the channels, digital channels, terrestrial TV, cable, etc. And so people are just a little bit nervous. They're not sure what to say, and they're not sure whether they'll get bang for their buck at this point, right? And yet, in spite of that, we have more people than ever before in the history of humanity watching, reading, and looking for stuff, looking for information that can help guide them, right? So you do have people with a voracious appetite for information at this point, and that's evidenced by page views. You can find that data, and ISPs publish internet traffic data as well. And you know what's interesting is that some of the rules are at least temporarily suspended in this environment, because there's a kind of equality among everyone who's out there trying to figure out what the heck's going on, right? And so if I wanted to get a meeting with the president of a major corporation 6 months ago, good luck on that. I'd need to join the same golf course as him or her and try to figure out how to run into them in the corridor, so to speak, right? But now I feel we have access to a lot of people who are open to discussion if you've got something intelligent and useful to contribute to the conversation. And that's an informality which is introduced into communication now. And I found this fascinating, that the ratio of internet activity has shifted slightly more into a desktop type of environment from a mobile environment. And this particular author suggested that that indicates a more diligent and serious type of internet search and information seeking than we'd be accustomed to when people are flicking through phones while they put gas in their car, right? So that suggests to me that people are more serious about information right now. And we certainly see the figures in online education at the top end of town. A Harvard MBA online right now. There's high demand for that because people are investing. They find it's a good time to invest in education. And at the free webinar end of town, what you guys are doing today, there's also a lot of activity. I'm delighted to see many of our clients offering webinars now for the first time, in some cases, ever. So, and that's because they're able to get an audience to those, because there's an interest in this, right? Now, I want to argue today that all of that spells opportunities for some if we are clever and careful about how we proceed. And what's driving those opportunities? Well, one thing is simple. Where there's change, there's opportunity. Change your car, change your house, change your job, change your school, change your partner, be careful of that one, change anything material in your life, and some opportunities will arise. It's up to us to decide whether to take those, of course. And there's risks with those changes as well. But what we're seeing in business is maybe a shift in the competitive environment. I wonder what your competitive environment will look like in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and that of your clients. What will it look like? Some companies will emerge stronger, many will go out of business, and perhaps the habits around commerce will change as well. The delivery agencies here where I live have never been busier as people embrace a more e-commerce buying environment for things that they never thought they would. We have abundant fresh produce, but hey, I can just order it now online, right? And then work styles. I wonder if we will revisit our view on real estate in business. Do you need that office? Do you need all of those square meters? What about communication? What about the way in which we talk to our colleagues and our clients, etc.? Right? So these things are all up and under consideration now. Now, here's another thing. I will digress with a quick story. I have a modest set of investments in early stage technology businesses, an area in which I'm just interested. And I made an investment in a digital healthcare company about 3 or 4 years ago. Frankly, it wasn't a very smart investment, and the company has been limping along ever since. And we've all had some hope that a miracle would occur, but we've all been waiting for the call from the CEO, the founder, saying, you know what, it's just time to stop this because we misunderstood the market and this is not going to work. Let's stop wasting time, right? Well, guess what email I got on Saturday? It was exactly that email, and it started something like, partly based on the COVID-19 environment, we've come to the difficult decision that it's time to stop activities in this particular business. Now, whilst that wasn't happy news, the individual in question leveraged this chaotic environment to make the kinds of decisions that they have been meaning to make for a long time. And I ask you, in your business, what kinds of decisions can you make right now regarding personnel, regarding clients, regarding products, regarding process, regarding partners, regarding finance, which were tough to make 3 months, 6 months ago that you were maybe taking off, postponing? Now is a time where you can actually make some really bold and challenging and difficult decisions. And I also think that for those businesses that survive, the shift will quickly happen from the idea of survival to one of continuity and long-term sustainability and resilience, right? And so who is best placed in the world as advisors to provide the mechanisms for clients to ensure they will be resilient in this new environment, right? Who understands the essence of their business and has access to all of that data? The job we have as accountants then is to be able to interpret that data and make sense of it for these clients, right? As they think strategically and long-term and they plan, right? And if you can be a part of that planning and strategic thinking, then you will embed yourselves in those clients' businesses as advisors, and they will want to work with you in the long term. And, you know, we talked about the uncertainty and the stress before. What do we do when we are not really sure what to do next? We phone a friend, right? We ask someone who has knowledge and authority and who's maybe been there, done that. And so surely advisors are well placed to participate in this change that our clients are going to experience. So I think that if we can help build resilient businesses, then there will be abundant work and we will be able to create a lot of value in our firms going forward. So that's a little bit of context as we now get into a poll. Thank you for your participation in this poll. Pretty simple question, but I'd like to get your perspective on this statement. The business world will be fundamentally changed post the COVID-19 situation, right? Now, some of you will say it'll be absolutely unrecognizable. It'll be so fundamental that there will be such substantial changes, right? And others will say, well, yes, many fundamental changes, but actually a lot will remain the same as well. And some of you will say, nah, this is just like a temporary thing and there'll be a few minor changes. And some of you will say it's absolutely just a blip and we'll be going back exactly to where we were. Let's open that poll. I'm assisted by the very talented Jono today, who's going to make that available. And let's see what you guys think. I would say that I did this poll in Europe a couple of days ago and in Australia, New Zealand yesterday. And I'm fascinated to see whether there is a change. And it's looking like there's not a change because a winner is emerging. I'm going to give you another 5 seconds or so to an active group. Thank you for your participation, by the way. Okay, let's close that up there. We have a winner. We have a winner, and that is that many fundamental aspects will change, right? No one said virtually recognizable. No one said we'll revert back to where we are. And twice as many of you said that there'll be fundamental aspects changing, and half as many said a few minor changes. And that's consistent, by the way, with what we found in Europe. We had Finns, Belgians, British, Irish, and some South Africans. That's not in Europe, but it's the same time zone. So, and same in Australia. So thank you for your participation. People are expecting quite fundamental change going forward. Now, let's talk about marketing. That's what we're here mostly to speak about, right? And some things that I think marketers should be focused on right now. Yeah, let's get into this. Number one, I believe it's time to shift the focus back to our current customers. A lot of marketing is about attracting new customers, right? It's about reaching out. But I feel at least in the next month, 3 months, 6 months, every dollar or every hour we spend on trying to create leads, remember that's what marketing exists for, should be allocated to our current customers. And we should be taking the view that we are trying to re-establish how it is that we can add value to our clients, what it is that they need to accomplish, right? This should be what we focus on primarily. Recalibrating how we add value. I believe this is a critical opportunity that we need to take right now. And that's where our marketing focus should be. Now, something in Panalytics that we talk about a lot is that no two of your clients are identical. And so classifying them into broad groups is a smart thing to do. And I suspect that you may have some clients who are not going to survive, right? You might also have some that are going to limp along for a long period of time, never really build back into a strong business, but they might with debt or other facilities be able to continue. And then you're going to find some that are going to thrive, right? Now, where do you think you should be focusing your attention? Remember what we said before, which is our first responsibility is to build successful businesses ourselves, because it's only in that way that we can properly serve all of our clients, right? So it's likely that the thriving businesses are where you're going to see the most opportunity. If you're an insolvency practitioner, you might find a lot of opportunity elsewhere. But I think it's important now to start to assess your clients and start to classify them. I did a little bit of research into industries, although I must say, I don't think it's about industry that's going to drive success. Of course, that's important. Of course, there are opportunities in some industries. I do think it's more about attitude. And I wonder how you quantify and assess the attitude of your clients, right? You know that people are ambitious and driven and want to get through this and will get through it. And then there's others who don't, who are maybe entitled and thinking, why doesn't the government give us more money? If I just wait around long enough, then maybe I'll get that cash and everything will be okay. Well, you need to be able to make those assessments. That's part of being an advisor, right? Anyway, let's talk about some industries which are apparently thriving. And I have the data to support this. No surprises in discount retail. However, if you're thinking about getting that tattoo that you have been thinking about for decades, now is not the time, because those guys are doing really well. And I try to reconcile that with the social distancing rules which are occurring. And I don't know of any way to do remote tattoos. But the fact is that people find some solace in tattoos right now. Sin businesses, alcohol and tobacco, sex, temporary workers, fast food, repairers, no surprises there, right? People don't buy as many new things. Logistics, education, we talked briefly about that, including online education. Debt collection, no surprise there. Computer service, again, from a kind of repair point of view. Cosmetics, that's interesting, isn't it? Because we're all meant to be staying at home. So are we making ourselves look more presentable, perhaps? Daycare, and then the indulgent sweets that we might use to get ourselves through our day. These are some businesses where there are opportunities, and I think as advisors we ought to have a finger on the pulse, and you should understand the market in which your client's operating and the trends in that market. But all of that said, this is about the focus on current customers and understanding how you can add value to them, right? Now, we're going to get into the next related issue, which is about the drivers of those businesses. What is it that makes them successful, right? And we talk about this in Panalytics a lot. It's market understanding. It's understanding their goals and priorities. It's understanding their vision. It's understanding the competitive environment and their clients. And I keep urging accountants to try and educate themselves on these topics related to their clients, because it's in that way that we can graduate from processing entities where we move data around and we can properly provide advice, right? Because we understand the drivers of success and the priorities of our clients. For all sorts of reasons, business drivers, what makes a business successful, does not necessarily reside easily in the financial statements of a business, right? I can look at my P&L and it doesn't necessarily tell me where I should go and prioritize, or my balance sheet, right? So we need some other tools. I'm going to spend a minute. This is Panalytics growth equation. Some of you have seen it before, but we identify 7 drivers which are listed there. Some of them are about how much you're making from your current customers and how much you're retaining them, lead generation, sales conversion rate, and then expenses and costs of goods sold, right? If we understand the current position of those, and then of course the potential position, and that might be upward because there's going to be growth, and it might be downward. So many of our clients are using this to simulate different outcomes which their clients may experience. This is growth equation, and it helps you understand the drivers of your clients. Now, I cannot pretend to fully understand everything that our clients in Panalytics want right now. So I have to get out there and ask them, right? I have to allow them to tell me. But when I ask them that question, I also recognize that there are some complications which make it difficult to articulate exactly what the answer is, right? And so my job is to listen very hard and then challenge what my clients are saying, because in that way I can configure my own service offering to help them better, right? Now, you can do this. I've spoken to 30 accounting firms in the last 5 days. That was a goal I set for myself. And it's really interesting to get that qualitative information, accountants saying, here's what's a priority for us right now. Here's what's happening with our clients, right? But sometimes we want to go more broad than that. This is a Panalytics tool called Client Insights. We have clients who feel that among their clients, accountants who feel among their clients, asset management, asset protection, estate planning is a priority going forward. Reconfiguring their accounting systems might be a priority going forward. Considering exit opportunities right now might be an opportunity. And so they're going out and searching among their client base whether in fact there is interest in this. And you can do this quite efficiently through some kind of survey tool, especially one where the templates are already established for you. Next is, I know that some of the businesses on this call are quite sophisticated in marketing actually, and you have long-term plans, annual plans, you have budgets, you have people who are driving your activities here, right? Well, we found in Panalytics, we thought we were very clever because in January, we went and created all of the content that we felt we needed for the next 6 months, right? And we thought, wow, we've been so efficient at that. Of course, what happened was that we got to March and the kind of stuff we were publishing was no longer suited to the conditions in the market. And so we had to rebuild our approach to content. We also went and looked at our goals, which tended to be long-term. As I said, I wanted to have 30 conversations with clients in a week, right? And I accomplished that. So, but these are very short-term goals. What are your goals in terms of soliciting more information from your clients, right? And how do those spawn opportunities? It kind of bothers me that a lot of accountants are reaching out and they're adding value, sometimes around stimulus programs, etc. However, they're not getting paid. And it bothers me because either they don't value the work they're doing, or they don't know how to articulate that value and ensure that it's compensated, right? And there's work to be done in that regard. I also like the idea that, especially in small accounting firms, sometimes marketing is allocated to some person or some partner who does it after they do their main job, right? But why can't we make this a company-wide endeavor? In Panalytics, everyone interacts with clients from time to time. So everyone has a responsibility to understand clients better and understand their drivers and try to offer value to them, right? And we need to set time. When we rebuilt our marketing plan, we had to lock ourselves in a room and really think it through. This is not simple stuff. We're going to talk more about content in a second, but why should this be simple, right? That messaging, that content is the most critical thing in marketing that we need to do. So you need to put the time aside. Otherwise, you will put out second-rate, sloppy, inconsistent, foolish information. And that's not who you want to be. Let's talk more about that, because the content you create, this is number 5, reflects on you. It reflects on your partners. It reflects on your brand. I don't like to beat up on other people who are doing their best in any field, including marketing, but it's kind of just what I'm about to do anonymously. I got an email the other day from a vendor of ours in the US, technology vendor, and it was entitled COVID-19 Update. I thought, well, sounds a little presumptuous. What do you guys know about that, in the context that not many people know stuff about it? But let's see what you've got to say. And it went something like this, right? Since the COVID crisis began, we have been committed to the ongoing delivery of our services to you and to keep you updated regularly. And I kind of thought, well, what's changed? Wasn't that the commitment we agreed 2 years ago when we engaged you guys, right? It went on that as various things have changed, the ongoing operational resilience of our business, as well as the ongoing health and well-being of our people, remains our top priority. Now, at this point, I'm thinking, so why are you telling me this, right? This is internal to you. You're a vendor to me, and you might want to be thinking about what my priorities are right now. We continue to take every necessary step to keep our workplaces safe for our employees who are working in our offices. Now I'm getting irritated because I've spent time reading this, and it goes on, right? About working remotely and our productivity and our ways of working. And we've been proactively utilizing our BCP. It's just extraordinary how egocentric this is and how insensitive it is to, why would I read this stuff? It's blah, blah, blah. And the point here is that we need to try to put out content which is about our clients and is about them and less about us, and is not looking insincere or superficial and made for the sake of making stuff, because that's not what we do as humans, at least humans who are serious about building long-term, interesting business relationships with our clients as advisors. That's not what we do, right? We do something different to that. And I think the opportunity to express ourselves honestly into our markets with our clients now is really important. I do think we can talk freely about positive stuff that we're doing and we're seeing with clients, etc. Right? So I think you get my point here. Who are you as a business, and who do you want to be perceived as? And make sure that that courses through your content as you develop and distribute it. Now, more on content, because this is the key thing, the key asset that we have to do, right? We have to use. And we've set out already to add value to our clients. Now we have to deliver on that. Many of you are doing something like this already, right? Leading with educational and helpful content is a very oversimplified way of putting this, versus your perspectives on the crisis, etc. Right? And what you set out to do is connect, because you understand your clients, because you've asked them what their issues are. You set out to connect with them on those particular subjects. It might be advisory in nature. It might be tool driven. We have clients who are building the spreadsheets which predict what kind of cash access you can get through government stimulus programs, etc. It might be news and industry. Be careful of that one, because as we've already said, there's an abundance of that. How are you going to stand out in that particular area? And there may be an opportunity to intertwine some of those ideas with your products and services, but they may not. But remember, we set out here to make a positive difference, to add value, and then to deliver on it. This is from our Australian organization, where we have commercial tenants opportunity where people can basically reduce their rent. We have this kind of content for all territories now. Frankly, I think it's old news, and I'm not proposing that a lot of clients send this stuff out, but there was certainly a time when it was important to be educating your clients on these opportunities, right? In the CARES Act in the United States, of course. Now, here is probably one of the most important things I want to say today. This is critical, and yes, it's about marketing, but it's about so much more than marketing, right? I really feel that the firms that are going to take advantage of the opportunities that we talked about before as advisors to create resilient businesses in the future, right, need to think very hard about specializing. Now, I looked at a firm based in the US, and it said we do tax and compliance, and we do some audit, and then we do advisory. And if you click on advisory, this is what you get. Now, this is a two-partner firm, 9 people. And I look at this and I think, wow, that's a lot of stuff. Do you really do that? Can you do all that stuff to a level? Because there are some specialists in all of these fields: capital raising, pricing, M&A advisory. These are very specialist. You can do all that stuff. That's I don't really believe you, right? And you know, isn't it very important right now that we are projecting a message which is credible? We had a question from a US accountant prior to the webinar saying, how do we build credibility? Well, this is not how we build credibility, by saying we do a whole bunch of stuff because we think if we throw a broad enough net out there, then we will catch some fish, right? I don't think that's the way to do it. So I'm urging clients to specialize. Now, question, what should we specialize in then, right? Now, of course, that's a complex question, which is different for every firm, but you might want to think of it in these terms, somewhere in the confluence of these factors, right? So think of your clients. What do they want to do? What are they trying to accomplish? What are their goals? Where can you add value? That's a good place to start. And then what are their business priorities? Here we talk about the functions in their business that they need to accomplish and do very well, right? For goal setting, we use Strategize to help accountants, and Growth Equation to identify whether it's about lead generation or better sales conversion rates or better amounts of revenue per customer, etc. Right? So there's a starting point. Let's make it about our clients, right? Then let's think of the competitive environment. Because if you're the only guy in town who's doing very complex tax advisory work on transfer pricing international deals, well, you have a niche, right? But if you're one of many, that's a different idea. And of course, we have to think of your skills, right? But let's be careful here, because I want to remind you that all of us, if we go back in some cases a decade or 2 or 3 or 4 maybe, we had no skills. We had 0 skills at some point, and we've acquired skills. And why should that ever stop? Why can you not develop skills today on some aspect of accounting where you have no skills or advisory work? That's what we should be always doing. We should be growing ourselves professionally, right? And I think it's really important that the area in which you choose to specialize is one that you enjoy, because it's just too hard to do business when you're not having fun, and people will recognize that you're not having fun and they won't want to work with you. That includes your team members, but also your clients, right? So somewhere in there lies the answer of specialization that some of your firms might want to consider. Let's look, I want to just mention a case study because I really enjoyed working with this firm recently over the last 6 months or so, based in the United States, 2 partners, 11 people, and they wanted to specialize. Actually, the 2 partners are a dad and a daughter. She went off and got a fancy education on the East Coast and is likely to take over the firm in due course, and has really interesting and innovative ideas as to what the firm would look like, one of which requires a specialization. And so we worked with them to develop this idea. And when we looked at their client base, they service a lot of farming families, and these are very substantial families with numerous businesses related to their dairy farming operations, right? In fact, whilst it's only 1 in 5 of the clients fit that definition, it's 3/4 of their revenue, right? And so we went through a whole lot of analysis to using our product evaluator tool, which is listed up there, to try and understand where there were opportunities to specialize. And succession planning was where we landed after considering in detail a number of options. And, you know, that really gave some focus to the business. Going back to marketing, imagine how your marketing challenge gets a lot simpler when your marketing challenge is about succession planning. If it's about that list of 23 things that we looked at before, wow, where do you start? How do you build credibility in that regard, right? But if it's all about one thing, in this case, succession planning, it makes you're able to focus and be precise in your messaging. I really urge you to think about that for your business. Let's do a poll. I want some more enthusiastic participation. I'm just interested, is your firm well known for specialization in one, maybe two areas? Some of you will say, absolutely, we're entirely specialized. In fact, we only really do one thing. We're viewed as a niche player in that area. Some of you will say, well, yes, some people would say, well, we kind of have a few fields in which we're specialized, right? It's a kind of some answer. And some will say, well, we're mostly known as generalists. We do have a little bit of specialty somewhere, but actually we're known as generalists. And some of you will say, nah, we're entirely known as generalists. That's what we do. By the way, there is a way to run that firm. Let's open the polling here. It is possible to be a generalist. The question is whether that will deliver what you want in your business. Let's see. Again, I'm comparing this with the results in other territories, and we have a winner emerging. Let's see. I'm going to give this another 5 seconds and 3 seconds. Yes. Okay. So look, most of you, 63% have said B, right? That, yeah, some would say we specialize, but you know, it's not entirely that niche player. That's the winner. The second, 38% of you said we're mostly known as generalists, right? I suspect that there's opportunity in many of the people on this call to consider specialization as a strategy in the coming years. Let's move on to our penultimate idea that I want to share with you today. And this is about multi-purposing content. You know, your investment in content is substantial. Remember how we said it's important and how you need to be sensitive? If you are putting the investment and the time into creating content, you should try to leverage it in multiple ways, right? And I'm actually going to focus mostly on that succession planning for farmers client that I've dealt with as I go through a list of ways in which you might multi-purpose your content. The first thing is an interview. Right? You know, I really like doing interviews with accounting firms because the personality of the firm and the personality of the founder, their history or founders of the partners comes to the fore, and you can start to understand the essence of that. I was very privileged to work with someone who may be on this webinar, I'm not sure, Mike Mellinger, who we published an article, an interview with him recently that my colleague Colin Dunn did. And I think it really reveals in a very positive way the personality of the firm. And there's a lot of substantive material. Please try to access that if you can. So at the essence here, one way to multi-purpose content is to get information from you, your experiences, your journey, how you got there, right? Now, what we find if we go back to something like succession planning, something substantive, that information can be turned into some sort of guide, which is now building credibility for your firm. It might look like this, branded for your business, of course. It, in this case, we're tackling a goal setting, but there's a whole lot of very specific ideas that the reader can implement into their business. So we like these guides. They start to create differentiation among firms quite quickly. And of course, any third-party validation that we can attract through case studies or testimonials is very important. We are very systematic helping our clients to get these case studies. This is an excerpt of some material we have on this, but we feel that this should be a priority. And now is a good time to be talking to people about this. Adverse periods, people can reveal more of a story in that time. And of course, we need to update websites to reflect this information. Of articles can be, you know, going back to succession planning, what we found is that, well, there's risks of not doing succession planning. There's stakeholders you have to consider. There's business structures you have to consider. There's tax advisory work you have to do. There's planning you have to do. There's family social management. There's a whole bunch of articles which we've now created which represent that one area. Right? And so we have a lot of material that we can share. This is one which related to asset protection, which has been circulated to their clients. Assessments. Are your clients ready for succession planning right now? Are they ready to consider selling their business? Are they ready to raise capital? Are they ready to consider a merger? Are they ready to take on partners? How do you know, right? You know because you might assess their readiness through some kind of tool. This is a Panalytics tool which solicits information and analyzes that to indicate readiness of a particular group who may need your services. What we found with the succession planning client is the daughter loves to be on video, and I mean that in a very positive way, and so is publishing videos now in a sort of executive check-in format. Here's what's happening now, and circulating those, as well as mentioning some of their solutions. And as I said before, I'm delighted that some of our clients are starting to do webinars. As you get better at this, I think having a narrow focus is important. The good thing about this is that the recordings can be leveraged as an asset. Remember, we're trying to multi-purpose content here, right? And we all know, we're all comfortable in the solution that we offer our clients, that we are willing to bring in other experts, right? We're not uncomfortable with that at all. Lawyers are sometimes an obvious choice because they bring a different set of expertise, which is of value to our clients. But on the subject, for example, of succession planning, we might bring in someone who can complement what we can say in the particular firm I discussed. And all of this can be distributed through social media channels. We're having the most success with LinkedIn and targeting particular groups who have a particular interest. The guide that I mentioned before looks like it might take on the gravitas of something a little bit larger, like an ebook, right? Many people want to write some kind of book. I don't think this will be a giant book, but we talked credibility, and a couple of you asked us about credibility prior to this webinar. This is one way to do it. Events, remember events? That's where we all used to go and meet up and do stuff together and talk to people, right? And network. Those were called events. Well, that's unlikely to happen in the imminent future, but there are virtual event opportunities which our client is considering in the longer term. Frankly, I had to ask them what they meant when they said this, a care package. I wasn't sure. I learned this from the client actually, but basically they picked a few of their key clients and they sent them stuff. They sent them board games. They were going to send them toilet paper. They thought that's not smart. They sent them other things which their clients might use in these interesting times, right? Again, this is content. It's multi-purposing content, and it's creating relationships which are memorable and which might yield further business interaction, right? Infographics, something short and sharp and visual, right? And some of our clients like to create tools which can estimate a variety of things and calendars and so on, right? So I really urge you, the investment in content, if you do it well once, and then figure out how to leverage it into a whole variety of forms so that you can get the maximum value out of it. We're coming to the final idea I want to share. This is pretty simple. You know, there's 3 questions I think you should ask when you're thinking about content planning. What is it that you want to create? We've talked a lot about that. And what tools you're going to bring. Some of you are sophisticated in this area, some of you are not, in which case you should consider working with outside providers, right? Timing is important. You know, that large list of stuff we talked about before, all of the ideas, that is a year's work, 18 months perhaps. There's like 5 or 6 articles. We don't want to distribute that all at once. We want to take account of seasonal factors and leak it out to our audience. And then we might even leak it out again, because, you know, the interview you did 3 years ago is still a very valid interview that we can reuse. And we also want to be sensitive to the different channels we're using. That might be as complex as the time of day when you post something on social media, or it could be the day of the week where you distribute a newsletter, etc. But here's what's really important, because who's going to do all this, right? I've seen people sit around a boardroom table and say, well, we need to get some content out there. Let's all do it ourselves. And I am suspicious that that's not the best and most efficient way, because the skill sets in content creation are massively different, because the process is a complex one, right? Yes, ideas, what should we be pushing out there, right? And then storyboarding or creating the essence of the tale you want to tell, getting a draft together and polishing that until it becomes something that is ready for an audience, right? And then branding it so that everything that you publish looks like you and expresses you properly, right? This is as important in this environment, more important than ever before. You can work with many of our clients engage us for our content that we can provide. And what we really like to do is be commissioned to create very differentiated and powerful content to represent your firms in ways that will create that differentiation for you. That's what we like to do. There are other providers who do that, but I think if you try and do it yourself, you might find it's way harder than you think. Now, I want to offer something today because we always like to offer something. Some of you are Marketing Hub users, some of you are not, but we have a very discounted offer to give you access to Marketing Hub and Client Insights, right? Which will allow you to either use our content or yours to create relations with your clients going forward in the long term, right? However, for 5 firms in each territory, right, we want to work with you on a customized Marketing Hub campaign over the next 90 days. And that is going to tackle a lot of the things that we talked about before. We can only do this with 5 firms because it's intense. There's a lot to do. What is your specialization? How are you different from your competitors? Who are your competitors, right? And we want to enable the creation of the content which is going to help you to stand out, particularly in this interesting time as your clients try and figure out their future, right? And this is available at an absolute steal of $100 per month, $300 investment for 5 firms to get that customized approach to your marketing. Why wouldn't you do this? What's the downside? You'll work with Panalytics advisors to try and figure out your direction in your firm around specialization, and we'll be able to help you evidence that in your market, right? And we'll work with you because we think that you're going to want to work with us for a very long time after we get this done, because luckily for us, content never stops. You're going to need to push it out forever and ever, right? So please put marketing in the box if you'd like to have a discussion around that. It's first come, first serve, because we have a limit as to what we can do. We're also offering the marketing course, which we offer 10 different modules around helping accountants to build advisory businesses, right? This is all about messaging, around differentiation, around process, around what you publish, which channels you use, marketing planning, right? It's about bringing some structure and form to help educate you and your team members to do this better. Because you know what? This is not going away. This is not just crisis oriented. This is about long-term planning. This will always be an important function. And you work with Panalytics advisors in group activities, but also individual activities, workshops, access to our content and our products, our tools to help you through this. We assess the progress that you make and certify successful people who complete the course, right? We start out, it's 12 weeks, right? There's a little bit of flexibility around that, but we start off trying to understand your firm. We have tools which will get us to understand your firm very quickly, right? And the context for how marketing works in your environment and its role going forward, right? And then we get into a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, right? How can you be different? What content should you be thinking about? What's your specialization, if that's appropriate right now? And then what's your content plan, channel plan? How are you going to leverage your database of contacts to create real value in marketing? This is what we want to share over a long period of time. This is complex stuff and it needs to be done properly. And that's what we focus on here. There's a number of workshops that we undertake with you. And what we love to do is field work where we actually target a particular client. Let's get really serious about one of the clients where you think there's additional work and figure out how we attract them through your marketing efforts, right? Let's get specific. This is not about generalities and conceptual university type marketing course. Let's really get specific about your business and then ensure not only that you're properly assessed and briefed and certified, but that there's a plan going forward, because it's now time to implement this stuff, right? This is one of 10 modules. We have a number of other courses that we offer. Again, please type marketing. We'll send you more information on this as well as the recording of the webinar. We're coming to the end. I'm grateful for your participation and attention today. Remember those 9 things, right? This is time to get really serious about our current customers and understand what drives the success of their businesses. And we need to ask them what that is, because we may not be able to intuit what it is ourselves. And we should go back to the drawing board with our marketing activities, because there has been the shift in environment that we've talked about already. And content is the primary tool we have. That's where we build credibility. That's how we express ourselves. And we want it to be consistent with who we are and what we want to be, right? And we must set out to add value, because that's what our clients want. That's what's obvious, right? Our clients need us to deliver value into their business. So let's make that the priority. Forget sales, forget leads. That will follow. Let's go out with our content and add value, right? And let's ensure that our firms are competitive in the environment, right? That we have something special and important to share, and that we can be trusted on that. And let's make sure that we use our investment wisely. We multi-purpose, right? Because that's how we leverage the asset of marketing, right? And then let's get our processes refined. I said there's 9, but you know what? There's a bonus. There's 10, right? Invest in your professional development, because this is part of the armory of a successful advisory firm going forward, is the ability to articulate how you are different and special into your market. So get good at that, because if you're good at that, it's going to be a really critical business function. And now is the best time ever to do it. It's been fun speaking to you. I was going to say with you, but thank you for participating in the polls. Thank you for your attention. I wish you the very best of luck with your business and your clients in this time. Please get in touch at any point in time if you have questions, ideas, comments. We love to hear feedback, and I will respond to any questions that have come through. We don't have time for that right now. And I think Jono might have a final poll, but I'm going to wish you very well and say goodbye, and wish you a very pleasant day. See you next time. Thank you very much.